Hey, welcome to another edition of Local Focus here on Proview Networks. Got a great guest today, but first I want to talk about something that's been in the news a little bit. If you watch the show regularly, and I thank you for that. I know a lot of you have been giving us feedback, and thanks for being loyal viewers. But we bring you some of the best and brightest athletes in high school here in New Mexico, and Romel Jordan was one of those when he was at Cleveland High School, no doubt. Here you have an explosive athlete, good-looking, bright-eyed, always a smile on his face kind of young man that had his whole athletic future in front of him. And he faced some hardships, whether that be the loss of his mother or some devastating injuries at UNM. And tragically, his life ended this week, if you saw that in the news. And, it's happening too often. We see the story this year of Jay Sandoval down at Clovis. Now, if there's ever a kid that's got a support system, it's the Wildcats. Having covered some football, Coach Fullerton, Coach Hatley, Coach Gillespie, there isn't a team I saw this year that looked more like a family and had more support in place than the Wildcats. But still, for whatever reason, a young man like that felt like he didn't have anywhere to turn. And we saw tragedy happen in Clovis, just like we saw this week here in Hobbs for a former Lobo Romel Jordan. So, it's just a bad place we're in when these athletes have no place to turn, whether it be over something as marginal as a losing game or as trivial as maybe problems with a boyfriend or girlfriend, or something a little more major like a devastating injury like Romel went through in college, or something life-altering like losing a parent. But for whatever reason, these athletes feel like they don't have anyone to talk to. Certainly, I talk to these coaches every game I cover, and we have some of the best coaches in the state of New Mexico. So there's always someone to turn to. Turn to a coach, turn to a teacher. Heck, hit up Adam or me on Twitter. Turn to somebody, talk to somebody. But I know we're thinking about Romel Jordan this week, that's for sure. I want to bring in my first guest, and that is Kameron Valencia, the El Dorado Eagles stud. Kameron, thanks for coming in, man.
Of course.
Do you have any thoughts about that whole situation with Romel there?
It's really unfortunate. I know going through an injury right now myself, it can be tough, but at the end of the day, you have to realize everything happens for a reason and just work through it.
I mean, I'm glad you brought up the injury. When we read it or when we hear about it, when athletes say, oh, this brought me really down to a deep, dark place, what does that really mean? I mean, talk about the level of disappointment that an athlete goes through when they have something like that happen to you.
It's really hard. The hardest thing probably isn't being able to be with your team and compete with them and having just to sit there and watch, but I feel like it's an experience that can make me a better person, a better player, and it will be hard, but just have to get focused on rehabbing and get back to a good place.
When something like that happens, an event that kind of alters your season or your career, how important is the support system around you?
It's extremely important, because without people around you, you have nothing to really push you to get through it.
So take us to post that play. What's going through your mind, first of all, when it happened?
I was scared. I wasn't in a lot of pain, but I was really scared. I've never had any major injuries before, a couple ankle turns, but that was about it. I was scared, and I saw my knee go out sideways, and I thought I tore my ACL.
And so post-game in the locker room, that's when your support system kind of starts, right? Whether it be teammates, coaches, talk about kind of their reaction. What did they do to kind of put you at ease or try to lift your spirits?
They're all giving me a lot of hugs. I know I had a few teammates crying with me, but a lot of hugs and just a lot of people encouraging me that I'd get through it.
And then your folks, your parents, what have they been doing since that point? Obviously, it's been a few weeks now.
They've been trying to keep me positive. They've been driving me around everywhere until recently, and I've just been focused on getting better and getting my knee better.
Now, I saw you last week at West Mesa when you guys played the Mustangs, and man, you were still hitting some threes. So
yeah.
Obviously you haven't had surgery yet, right?
No, sir. I get surgery March 20th.
Okay, so is that more frustrating when you can be out there with your guys during warm-ups and you're busting threes? And I mean, I think you were hitting more than the West Mesa kids in shoot around, but we can edit that out later. But so is that more frustrating when obviously you can still handle it, you can still shoot, but there's those limitations, right? And talk about that.
It is hard because right now my knee's getting better, and I could feel like I could almost run with it, because if I don't, if I actually tried to play, my chances of hurting my knee a lot more would be high. And it's hard because I have to give that period for my knee to get better before surgery. So it's hard just to sit there and have it get better just to get worse.
Now, there's been some pretty high-profile knee injuries in the city, or the state, I should say. You know, with J.B. White, you go back to football, and Dorian Lewis, and Cameron Schreier at West Mesa. Have you reached out to any other players that have had a similar or that injury?
I have. Fortunately, they've been on my team. There's a freshman who goes to our school who had an ACL tear before he got here. Then Tyler Rogers, after the season, he tore his meniscus or MCL and ACL. So I've leaned on him a lot.
And what have they told? I mean, what kind of questions have you asked them? What have they told you?
The best things to do for rehab to help get the process going better and quicker, and what they did to stay positive, pretty much.
And I believe, you know, Tyler, he's playing basketball again, right? I saw that on his social media.
Mm-hmm. He's going to be playing at a JUCO in Illinois.
Right. So great things can happen on the other side of that. That's for sure. But how difficult is it right now? Obviously, at the time of this filming, you guys had a game last night where El Dorado needed every bit of Tyler Quintana's 39 points to escape with a win there. How hard is that for you?
It's really hard, knowing that I couldn't finish out my senior season and having to watch. It's tough, but at the end of the day, I know it's for a reason, and I'll push through it, and I'll do everything I can to help my team win.
Now, getting to know some of you and talking to Roy always about some of his kids, you know, all signs seem to point that you guys are great dudes. So what has Cam Valencia, the assistant coach, been like? I have a feeling that you've been pretty positive, and how are you assisting the team in that way?
I like to sit next to Coach, give him some advice, listen. If he tells me to get people ready, I'll go talk to them, make sure they're ready to go in the game. Just try to keep people positive, stuff like that.
Now, what about practice? What are you doing in practice?
I've been rehabbing a lot. I've been going into the trainer, icing, getting on a bike, getting my mobility back, and then occasionally shooting.
So has there been an instance where you've been like, hey Roy, I think we could maybe run this play, or how in depth are you in this new role?
Last night actually I talked about him subbing in a player to help guard Eloy.
Oh, okay, there you go.
And it kind of worked. He made a few mistakes, but he did pretty good overall. And that was about pretty much it.
How do you think this role will continue to the rest of the year? Obviously, state tournament time right around the corner. I mean, can you still help this El Dorado team?
I believe so. I think I could help keep my teammates ready and focused, and just talking to Coach and helping him in any way I can.
All right, we're going to take a quick time out here. We've got to pay some bills and hear from some of our sponsors. Come back with Cam. We'll do a little preview of the state tournament, talk about his Eagles' chances, talk about the rest of the field, much more with Cameron Valencia after this.
Sadie's is a proud supporter of New Mexico high school sports and athletics, and we here at Proview Networks would like to thank Sadie's for their continued support in helping us bring you all of your New Mexico high school sports coverage.
The New Mexico High School Coaches Association, established in 1941, is an organization of New Mexico's best and most professional interscholastic coaches. Coaches across work daily to help our student athletes excel in the classroom, on the field of play, and in our communities. Students that participate in interscholastic activities attain higher grades, higher graduation rates, and higher wages. Responsible for the North-South All-Star Games, statewide Coaches Award Program, and providing multiple professional development opportunities for New Mexico's coaches. Be a great coach by coaching beyond the game.
Hey, we're back with El Dorado Eagles standout Cam Valencia. We talked about his injury, and now we want to move forward a little bit to the state tournament. First of all, we still have, seeding is yet to come out. You guys, your team's got a big one coming up, right, against La Cueva. You could possibly see them again in the district tournament, and that's going to certainly determine state seeding. What do your guys have to do to have a successful end to this season?
We got to stay focused. I know we took West Mesa lightly yesterday and didn't come out very strong, and that's been a problem for us most of the season. Our starts have been bad. The game when I got hurt, I think we started like 18-4 or something like that. That's where we really need to make a big push, is starting out better. We've been a good second half team pretty much all year, but that start's been really our downfall.
Do you guys have the pieces to go all the way and win a trophy with this team?
Yes, I believe we do. Right now, the chemistry's a little bit off. Obviously, I got hurt, so it's a little bit different, but they're starting to work it out, and I think they'll be okay.
How are the guys fitting into new roles? Maybe guys, have to take some more shots. Someone else has to handle the guard position. I thought in the game I saw you against West Mesa, I thought Devin did a real nice job running the point for a little while in a 5-minute stretch. Obviously, Tyler's going to be gassed if he's out there every minute of every game. So how's everyone adjusting to their new roles?
It's definitely important. Devin helps Tyler bring it up in guarding players. That way maybe he could take a break on defense a little bit, not like completely, but stuff like that to help him out. And I think Daraje will really step up, him and Cam.
So going forward, who else are some favorites now? Let's say you weren't an El Dorado Eagle. Let's say you were Cam Valencia, the Proview Network's broadcaster, okay?
Okay.
Right? Dream come true, I'm sure, right? But who are some of the other teams that are going to be right there at the end, in your opinion?
I think obviously Cleveland, Atrisco, Volcano, those three teams are always really good.
So what do you like about those three teams? Start with Cleveland.
Cleveland, really athletic. They could switch everything. They play in tens, like really fast. I think for them sometimes they might play a little too fast, which could hurt them in certain games. And then
Scouting report. You hear that, Coach Jimenez? You hear that? Scouting report. All right, let's move to Atrisco. What do you like about that squad?
They could play with anyone. That was one of the teams where I didn't really think they'd be that great this year, and they really surprised me. They're a really good team. They have good defenders. Obviously, Josiah could really score. Then DeMarcus is probably the best defender in the state, in my opinion. And I think they just can hang with anyone.
Is that a team where, it's hard to describe, but it's just there, the chemistry?
Yep.
That's what I say. When people ask me why I like Atrisco, I say I can't explain it. They just have it.
Really well together.
What do you like about the Volcano Vista Hawks?
I think they're probably the deepest team in the state overall. They have really good bigs. Their guards are really solid, and just all around they move the ball and they're well coached.
What? Anyone else?
I would say I saw Rancho's doing good. I haven't seen them play, so I can't really comment on them. But I think a team that could upset people, I know we struggled with them in the summer, was Manzano. I think they have the right pieces if they play well together.
Now, what about, Las Cruces is going to come into this thing undefeated, and they're going to play that no one respects us card, right? Mm-hmm. What do you think of that squad?
I played them in the summer. I think we beat them by 20-something. So I was surprised that they were undefeated, but obviously they're a really well-coached team, and they're always good every year, so you can't, disrespect them.
So if you haven't got your tournament pass yet, make sure you do that on the NFHS network, by the way. Catch all those games. And then let's go now to last year's state tournament. Or let's talk about last year's team a little bit. Because that was a pretty special group, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm, definitely.
Talk about how you developed as a basketball player on that team.
My roles changed quite a bit because my sophomore and freshman year, I was ran as a big guy, which it doesn't really make too much sense. But I mean, I got it in the short term, but it helped me a lot. My sophomore year, I developed more to my junior year, I slashed to more wing, and that was fun. I got to play along good players, and my role was just pretty much to guard people, guard the team's opposing best player, and just score pretty much. I got to facilitate a little bit, but not as much as I probably would have liked to.
And how did you? What's the kind of work that goes in during the summer when you transition from, a defender as an underclassman to obviously a stud as your junior and senior year? What's the work you're putting in during the summer?
The work was pretty much consistent. I always just worked on my complete overall game, shooting, dribbling, all that, and just try to get more all around. And as my role changed, I stepped into it, and I think I did a good job.
Is that something that just kind of happens naturally over time as you go into your junior and senior year? Or is that something where at the beginning of a season or at the end of a season, Coach Sanchez sits you down and says, hey, look, this is kind of what we're going to expect of you this year. So-and-so has left. This is what we'll need from you. How does that transition happen?
I think the transition kind of worked itself out. We talked about roles, but as that group of like 5 and 6 moved out into the summer, we all kind of figured out which was which, and we started to figure it out in the summer. That's when it really came about.
And when did you feel, or I don't know how you feel about it, but I mean, in my opinion, you and Tyler obviously one of the best duos in the state, and I'm sure a lot of people make the argument as the best duo in the state. How does that happen? How does that chemistry come together? How do you guys complement each other's games and things like that?
I think we complement each other pretty well. We played together where we floated freshman year together, and I got a good feel playing with him a lot on JV that year, and he can score the ball really well. And I'm okay. I mean, I can score, but I have no problem taking a back seat and just distributing, which I think I got to do a lot more of this year, which was good for me. So I think that's how we complement each other.
And how does that 1-2 punch, like how does that dynamic affect the basketball team? And what I mean by that is when a team knows that, hey, we got these two guys, how do all the role players kind of find themselves, and how do they go into their roles?
I think it could actually be tough for them sometimes, knowing that we're going to get more of the touches, stuff like that. I know some people had stronger personalities, and it was hard for them to adjust, but I think they came along really well, and they're really figuring it out.
And I asked that question because I want to go back to a guy like Mike Muno or a shooter like that, or really any role player. Insert name here, right? You can insert any name here. But how does a player adjust knowing that, hey, I got to get my 8 to 10 points, but I probably have to get them on 5 or 6 shots, right? I have to be a high efficiency guy because we got this stud 1-2 tandem. How does that work itself out in practice and throughout the year? And when did you feel like you guys were really clicking last year at that?
Last year, that was actually, I think, probably one of our biggest problems. People never really fit into the roles that well. We always had people who complained about not getting enough shots. And I think that's one of the reasons we didn't win state last year.
And so how does that look, or what does that look like in practice or during the season? If you want to take it forward to this team, how do guys fit into their roles playing with, I guess we'll say it, superstars, right? Mm-hmm. How do role players fit into roles playing with a 1-2 punch as good as you and Tyler?
I think they figured it out by just seeing how they could impact the game by not being ball dominant. And I think Cam stepped up a lot while shooting off ball and stuff like that. And Daraje starting to figure it out that he could make a huge difference rebounding. The time we beat La Cueva, I think he had 16 or 18 rebounds, something like that, which was huge.
And do the good teams always have those? It seems like the good teams always have those role players, right? The winning teams. Mm-hmm. I could make the argument that that's why Atrisco's so good, right? You have a guy like DeMarcus who he made his name as the defensive player of the year as a sophomore, right? But he never really looks for his own as a junior, as a senior. He's continued to embrace that role. You have guys like Dom Rivas coming off the bench, right? They accept those roles. You take a look at the year Volcano Vista made that run. There were obviously Cormier, took over, but I thought the role players did a really nice job. Is that the key to a good basketball team? Have you found that to be the key? And talk about some of your role players this year.
I think that is the key, finding ways to impact and just be successful without having to be ball dominant is huge, especially in this state. And that's exactly what Volcano continues to do. They don't have like one main scorer every night. They have guys who switch the roles and depending on the matchup score a lot. And I think that's the big difference between them and why they're so good every year.
And best role player right now, if you had to name one?
On our team?
No, out of those teams that you mentioned, the Volcanoes, the Atriscos, the Clevelands, I think, what are some of those role players that really stand out on those squads?
On Cleveland, I really like their point guard. I can't remember.
Nakai Smith?
Yes, thank you. I think he does a really good job, and he really steps up when they need him. He makes a lot of big baskets. And from last year's team, I like their two-guard, Jalen.
Right. Phillips.
Yeah, Jaden Phillips. I thought he was a big difference maker for that team, especially defensively.
How good of a basketball player is Jake Deathridge for Volcano Vista. I keep watching them. At every game I go to, I just leave saying, damn, that kid needs to be on my team.
He really caught me off guard. He's really good, actually, and despite being like really good at basketball, he's a really good dude.
Yeah.
Talking to him during the game and after was really nice.
And it seems like that's a guy that embraces his role, right?
Definitely. He steps up when they need him to.
We'll take another break here. Our last one. Come back with Kameron Valencia after this.
Don't sacrifice quality of flavor when you're in a hurry. Golden Pride offers ribs, fried chicken, green and red chili breakfast burritos, and Frontier Cinnabons. 4 great locations, or visit us online at goldenpride@abq.com. Golden Pride Barbecue Chicken and Ribs, proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walk up to the cashier, order up a root beer and a number 1. Cover it with green stuff, 1 scoop is not enough. Find a booth that's real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
We're back with El Dorado standout Cam Valencia. We've been talking about the state tournament, up and coming, some teams that are in it. We're talking about his Eagles squad and what they can do the rest of the way. But I want to shift our attention back to you. Pre-injury, what schools were you looking at? What schools were looking at you?
I didn't have too many looks. I know I had one offer from New Mexico Highlands, and I had a preferred walk-on situation with the Lobos.
Right. So have you heard anything about that? What does this injury do that potentially?
I just heard from one of the assistant coaches at Highlands yesterday, Coach Mira, that they still believe in me and would take me despite my injury.
So what does that do, obviously, to your confidence and your mindset?
It's huge. It's nice knowing that I still have an option of where to play, and it'll help me really get through surgery.
And what does that do to your mindset, and how does that help you just focus on rehab when you know there's a light at the end of the tunnel, right?
It's definitely a big motivator knowing that I need to get stronger and get my knee better in order to play.
And now Highlands, obviously, that's a up and down. They play a style that's pretty fun to watch, right? I mean, let's say that's the place you land. Where do you see yourself contributing on that team?
I don't really know the guys too much. So it really depends on like how I'd fit in with them and what my role would be. But I feel like I'd be the same person, a scorer and a distributor.
And you said preferred walk-on possibility at UNM. Obviously, that's something that's been talked about before with Anthony Chavez. Of course, Jordan Arroyo's on the team now. So what intrigues you about that?
It's always been a dream to play for the Lobos. And as a kid watching them, it's the pit. Everything about it's always been intriguing to me.
So, I mean, does it have, obviously that program got a hold of Anthony, right? Anthony, same thing. He wanted to be a Lobo badly. That didn't end the way he wanted to. Jordan, on the other hand, got some minutes early in the season. So how do you balance going to a place like Highlands where you're going to see the floor and you're going to see it regularly, or to a place like UNM where there's no guarantee. I've heard guys tell me, hey, he's got to get some local kids in there, right? So what does that do with your mind? First of all, do you think you can play for the Lobos, or do you think, hey, I want to play all the time, maybe look at other options?
To me, I'm always willing to bet on myself. I know for other people, maybe their situation's different, but I always thought I could play for them, that I work hard enough and that I'd earn time. And it might not be given to me right away, but I don't think that necessarily bother me.
And when you're in this recruiting process, let's say, what's the trust like what's the trust like with Coach Ware and his staff? Where at what point do you say, yes, I want to try to do this, I want to be a Lobo? At what point do you not think, no, this guy's blowing hot smoke?
I really like Coach Rear. I think he's a really good guy, and it was nice talking with him. He didn't try to promise me anything other than what my situation would really be. He told me that I wouldn't be guaranteed any floor time, that I would probably be redshirted as a freshman and stuff like that. So I don't think he really told me any lies.
Right. I have a feeling that you're pretty good in the classroom, from what everything Roy's told me. So, you know, what do you see yourself studying? What's in the future when it comes to non-basketball things?
I was looking at majoring in sports science or something in that area, being like a chiropractor, something like that really interested me.
What interests you in that?
I like to be more active, and I don't think I could do more of like a desk job because I'm a little too.
You ever watch
go.
those crazy YouTube videos of Dr. Hightower, the Lobos or the chiropractor that does all the MMA guys and the Lobos?
I have seen some of
Those
those.
are
Yes.
nuts, man. That could be you, right?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I actually like it. So
If you don't know what we're talking about, then YouTube Dr. Hightower, and his YouTube videos are absolutely just crazy. Have you reached out to any guys like Anthony or Jordan or any Lobos currently? JB White, another guy that we've had on the show here that maybe the Lobos are on his radar. Have you reached out to any of them, talked to any of them?
I haven't.
What's next for Kameron Valencia right now as far as rehab and surgery?
I get surgery March 20th, and I'm going to start rehab as soon as I can. And other than that, that's all I'm going to focus on. Post-surgery is just getting my knee better.
Timetable for something like this? What has been presented to you?
About 9 to 12 months, so about next season I'll be out too.
All right, well, we'll look forward to running into you at the pit. I know we'll be there for the state tournament. Again, if you haven't got your NFHS network pass, make sure you do that. All the games we'll have for you on the NFHS network. Of course, no TV games during the state tournament. And if you're hobbling around the concourse and you see our set and we're doing a show, you're always the first guest welcome, okay?
Thank you.
Thanks for
appreciate it.
coming in, Cam.
Of
Good
course.
luck.
Thank you.
That'll do it for this week's edition. Good night, everybody.
High school sports are back. The 2018-19 season kicks off, and you could watch every Proview Network broadcast live on the NFHS Network. Every moment, from every game, from every sport, including all NMAA state championships. Get your highly discounted monthly pass now. Go to ProviewNetworks.com and sign up. Watch New Mexico's best.